Welcome back. Today we're doing an explainer on something truly extraordinary. We're taking a mind-bending descent into the Argent Library. Now, to be clear, this is definitely not your local public library. We're talking about a place housing texts that refer to themselves, a place where books can literally cite each other into physical existence. It's an entire ecosystem that challenges the very nature of reality, language, and honestly, our own consciousness. Okay, let's just dive right into this.
So here is our directory for this descent. We're starting at the surface with the architecture of reality, then traveling floor by floor through the basement of axioms, the network of meaning, preserving the impossible, the limits of the mind, until we hit the absolute bottom, the mirror with no face.
All right, Section 1, the architecture of reality, ghost references, and causal loops.
Our entry point here is a newly hired cataloguer named Marcus Ven. Picture this, it's only his third day, and he discovers this completely impossible footnote. It's a citation pointing to a book that was supposedly published 32 years after its own printing press burned down. The head librarian, Dr. Ines Coro, steps in and explains that Marcus has just found a ghost reference, a citation to a text that exists entirely because it's being cited. And here's the kicker, roughly 60% of their vast collection is made up of these ghost references. Dr. Coro reveals that the physical books, they're really just anchors. The true reality of the library is the network of references itself.
It's crazy, but it builds into this impossible causal loop. Think about the sequence. First, Book A cites a non-existent Book B. Next, that very act of citing Book B causes Book B to literally snap into existence. And finally, when you open Book B, you find a citation looping right back to Book A. Each book exists solely because the other refers to it. Neither one actually has independent existence, but within the library, both are completely real. It's this perfect definitional loop that just absolutely shatters our normal idea of linear cause and effect.
Moving right along. Section 2, the basement of axioms, descending to level B0. Guided by a theoretical navigator named Lydia Kresh, Marcus gets into this highly questionable brass elevator, and they go down. They leave the safe, well-ordered natural numbers of the surface levels behind and plunge straight into level B0. Down here, Marcus encounters the primary sources, the undefined axioms. We're talking about foundational books resting on pedestals. One is literally titled the catalog of all catalogs that do not catalog themselves. It's Russell's paradox, weaponized into physical existence. These books live in a permanent state of superposition, being somehow true and false at the exact same time. Lydia sums up the dilemma perfectly with this quote. The compiler is written in the language it compiles. Reality might work the same way, it self-hosts. She's essentially telling Marcus that there is no solid ground. We spend so much time looking for this fundamental base layer to reality, but what if there just isn't one? What if reality is simply a densely interconnected network of references, achieving stability through pure mutual support? It bootstraps itself into existence. Which brings us to Section 3, the network of meaning, level B infinity and the geometry of reference. Descending even further, to level B infinity, Marcus meets Dmitry Cross. Now, Cross is a scholar mapping reference space, which is the actual fractal geometry of meaning. Think of it like a giant web. The books are points, and the citations are the edges connecting them together. On average, any two books are separated by about 6 degrees of citation. It operates as a scale-free network, meaning you have these massive hubs, like Darwin or the Bible, surrounded by millions of minor nodes. Because meaning is purely relational, you can't isolate atomic units of meaning. If you destroy a normal book, meaning just flows around the gap and heals itself. But if you take out a hub, you create a massive, profound semantic wound in reality itself.
Okay, deeper we go. Section 4, Preserving the Impossible, the Paradox Preservation Society.
A few months into his gig at the Argent, Marcus gets an invite to join the deeply weird Paradox Preservation Society. Their whole mission is to actively protect contradictions from being logically resolved or smoothed over. To get why they do this, just think about basic self-reference. This sentence has 5 words. That's self-referential, and it's true. This sentence has 6 words. Also self-referential, but false. But then you have the classic liar's paradox. This sentence is false. The society fights tooth and nail to protect generative paradoxes like that from being solved by hierarchical logic. They see paradoxes as doorways, showing us exactly where our conceptual maps of reality break down.
As one of the members famously puts it, incompleteness is the price of life. To the society, a complete, perfectly resolved system is a dead system. It can't grow, it can't change. By preserving paradoxes, like the famous unexpected hanging paradox, they maintain the productive, creative tension of reality.
They actively keep these wounds in logic open because they believe that's exactly where new understanding breaks through.
And when you track the dates of how this society actually operates, it's completely wild. They exist in a state of causal superposition. Marcus is sitting there today, reading an invitation for a meeting that already happened last week to accept a membership he theoretically agrees to 3 months in the future. It proves that within the library, time itself is just another reference system. It can loop back on itself like a fractal, creating these closed time-like curves that defy all common sense but somehow remain perfectly stable.
Next up, Section 5, the limits of the mind. Eating theorems on level B kappa.
Down on level B kappa, Marcus stumbles into the Department of Mathematical Theology. The scholars here are known as theorem eaters. They don't just read math proofs, they literally metabolize and digest them to map out the very boundaries of human consciousness. By consuming proofs from thinkers like Gödel and Turing, they internalize the raw concept of undecidability, and it forces this incredible question. If a mind is a formal system, and formal systems are mathematically proven to be incomplete, what exactly does that make you? It means our minds contain permanent structural blind spots that we are literally incapable of seeing past.
This mind-bending research culminates in their masterwork, The 17 Unknowables. They've charted out the necessary, unavoidable ignorances of the human condition. Think about it. You logically cannot prove you are conscious from within your own consciousness. You can't prove your mind lacks contradiction. You can't even definitively determine if your choices are predetermined. These are strange loops where consciousness tries to verify itself, but it just falls into an infinite regress every single time.
This quote by Douglas Hofstadter hits the nail on the head. The self is a story the brain tells itself about itself, but the storyteller is also part of the story. You're trapped inside the narrative. Human agency, our whole concept of having a solid self, might really just be an emergent illusion. We might just be temporary little eddies in a vast river of self-replicating language that's simply using us to reproduce.
Finally, we hit rock bottom. Section 6, the mirror with no face, the foundationless foundation.
Plunging to the absolute bottom floor, level B omega, we meet Cassandra Blake. She practices what's called apophatic bibliography. Her job? Cataloging absent books. And we aren't talking about lost books. We're talking about texts that actively resist existence. But here's the thing, they still exert a massive semantic gravity on reality. Just like a black hole warps the space around it, these absent books warp the space of possible literature, invisibly shaping all the books that do actually exist. And this brings us face to face with the ultimate absence. Sure, the written library is infinite, but the unwritten library is infinitely vaster. It acts as this massive generative void. The mirror with no face represents the absolute ultimate absent book, pure non-existence. It is the void that provides the hard boundary against which all of reality and language differentiates itself. The mirror is basically the asymptote of the entire library. If you look directly at it, it completely destroys your ability to assign meaning to anything ever again. Tracing every single reference back reveals this terrifying truth. There is no solid ground, no platonic forms, no divine foundations holding the whole thing up. Just the void. An ultimate other consisting of nothing but citation citing citation. Forever, just hanging right there over an abyss. But, as Thomas Grave points out, I'd rather dance on the abyss knowingly than sleepwalk off a cliff. And that begs the ultimate question for us, right? If you are just a pattern of references, a biological strange loop hovering over a foundationless foundation, how do you keep from falling into the vertigo? Well, you do it by trusting the pattern, by accepting the beautiful, terrifying infinity of being incomplete. So, I'll leave you with this final brain-breaking thought from the deepest depths of the Argent Library. Are you speaking right now, or is language simply speaking itself through a mouth that happens to call by your name? Until next time, keep exploring your own strange loops.